So this sermon is entitled The Hero's Journey, and it's based on the teachings of the extraordinary scholar Joseph Campbell. So as we begin, I'd like to mention and acknowledge that the word hero is a masculine word, but to remain congruent with the language of Campbell's teachings, I'm going to continue to use the word hero, but I'll use pronouns as they and them in reference to it, so it will resonate for all genders. Joseph Campbell was a teacher everyone would have liked to have had. One of his students from Sarah Lawrence College where he had taught for 30 years, described him as a beaming flashlight into the darkness. At a time when millions of people were yearning for a way to talk about spirituality amidst all the rigid belief systems, Campbell gave him a language for that. In his studies and teachings of comparative mythology and comparative religion, Campbell saw myths as clues to our spiritual nature, and that they could help guide us to a sacred place within us where we might unlock the creative and deeper unconscious self. He traveled around the globe studying cultural and religious myths and legends of humanity. And in this exploration, he came away with an awareness, which was that the essential story of all this mythology and all these legends was really the same. And he called this the hero's journey, this line that travels through these myths and legends. So 2 years before Campbell passed away, he was interviewed by Bill Moyers, and they created a PBS special called The Power of the Myth. It was back in 1988. How many of you have watched that? Wow. Okay. How many of you enjoyed it? Wow. Okay. That's great. Well, I recall watching it back then, and I was a much younger person, and though I was very interested, much of it felt like a little bit of a different language to me, especially the part about spirituality. And I'm so glad to explore it again 35 years later, because I feel like I have new ears, that I could hear what I couldn't hear before, and I'm grateful for this. So what is a hero's journey? The hero's journey is a pattern that's found in myths and stories throughout history. And there's a common thread that connects all these experiences of literature, movies, and religions. Some examples are Star Wars, Harry Potter, Jaws, The Matrix, The Wizard of Oz, and of course, The Lion King. I love The Lion King. The hero's journey has 3 basic parts: separation, initiation, and return. So let's explore these stages. So the first is separation. The hero is living a certain kind of life. An event occurs that changes their lives as they've known it. They are then separated from that life and on a trajectory from the life that they were accustomed to an unknown. And often this is an act of trauma, or something that is unwelcome that creates this situation. The Chinese symbol for crisis is actually composed of 2 parts. The first means danger, and the second is opportunity. It's interesting. The second stage is called initiation. And in this stage, the hero, this is a central stage of the process, and the most difficult part of the journey for the hero. It's here where they face trials and their deepest fears. Typically, it's a point where they have an ultimate challenge they have to overcome. And through all of this, a transformation occurs. Campbell teaches that the tests and trials that the hero experiences are illuminations of consciousness. The tests and trials are illuminations of consciousness. The third final stage of this is called return. And so in this stage, after all the challenges and adversities, the hero returns to their life. They've completed an act of heroism, or they've become illuminated with wisdom that is now a part of who they are, and the journey has changed them. And when they return, with these benefits of this journey, we become aware that it is not just for them. It is always not just for them. It is ultimately for the world around them. So I mentioned in the beginning at step 1 of this, the separation stage, that a catalyst occurs to change the hero's life. And now, as I mentioned, this could be a traumatic event that is outside of them, outside of the being, or it could be something that happened within them. This journey could be launched intentionally, that somebody says, that the hero says, oh, I'm going to go and do this. I'm going on this journey. And sometimes it is just forced upon the hero as something that they had no choice over. So here are 2 different examples to explain that. For example, in the Odyssey, Odysseus intentionally sets out on a journey after the Trojan War to return home to his kingdom in Ithaca. That is one of intentional. On the other hand, here's a hero's journey where the hero does not intend to take the journey by choice. It's by circumstances that's out of their control. That would be the Wizard of Oz. Dorothy does not plan on going to Oz or having to deal with these witches and all the challenges that she awakens to there, but she is forced upon this journey. In essence, a hero is someone who has given themselves to something bigger than themselves. Campbell explains that there's 2 types of deeds. One is physical, where the hero is saving a life and performing an act of heroism, and the other is spiritual, where he has found a mode, the hero has found a mode of experiencing something transcendent in their spiritual experience, and then returns with this transcendent experience, this transcendent wisdom to share with the world around them. The moral objective is that of saving people or saving an idea. The hero is sacrificing themselves for something. That's the morality in it. Myths show us the way. They're a clue of the direction, but they can't take us there. They just point. Campbell explains that the journey is of losing primary concern about yourself and your own protection. The losing of yourself and giving to another, that's trial in itself, is it not? He shares that this is where the big transformation happens. The essence of all myths is the transformation of consciousness, changing the way we think. And through changing the way we think and process inside ourselves, we change ourselves and we change the world around us. So I'm going to share a fable, a story at this point. And it's the story of the Golden Buddha. Many years ago in Thailand, there was a temple called the Temple of the Golden Buddha. It's an appropriate name. And before it stood a huge golden Buddha. And the people of the village loved this Buddha, and the monks loved this Buddha, and they would dance around the Buddha with love and joy. And word came one day that the monastery and the people in the town were about to be set upon by an army of invaders. So the monks had a brilliant idea to cover the Buddha with mud and concrete so that it would basically look like a stone Buddha. And it would keep it safe from the invaders pillaging it. So the invaders rolled in, and they walked by the Buddha, and they paid no mind of it. But they did take over the town and monastery, where they lived for many, many years. And eventually, decades after, they moved on to another town. And it had been so long that people forgot that the Buddha was golden. So one day, a monk came to meditate sitting at the base of the Buddha. And he sat and meditated. As he went to get up, he tapped against the Buddha, and a piece of the concrete and mud fell off. What did he see but this glimmering gold? And he ran back to his fellow monks and he said, "Quick! The Buddha's golden. Come, come." And all the monks came out and they took their picks and hammers and they eventually unearthed the hidden golden Buddha. So there's a metaphor in here. And what is that metaphor of this golden Buddha? The metaphor is that each of us is golden by nature. And we are born of perfection and goodness. We are born knowing. We are born knowing what every great master ever said. We are born as one with the Buddha and the Christ and all the knowledge of the universe and wisdom in the universe. And since we're UUs, we do believe in original goodness, don't we? It should resonate with us in a way. But then, after we are born with this perfect goodness, we go to school. And they say, oh, you have to dress this way. And this is what boys do, and this is what girls do, and this is what black people do, and this is what white people do, and on and on and on. And so by the time you're 4 or 5 or 6, you start developing this casing over yourself. We start to believe that we are stone and mud rather than golden. And we go on with our lives. And then something happens. Something comes along that cracks our casing. And it's often not something that we would welcome that came. Something that rattles us, something that takes us out of our complacency. It is not something that is welcome to our life, but it does knock a piece of that mud and concrete off of us. And it is only in that moment that we get to look inside and see the golden. And from that moment on, the concrete and the mud that's on us will never satisfy us again. Because at that moment, we enter our own hero's journey. And for the rest of our lives, we will be picking away at that stone and mud because we know who we are, and we will spend the rest of our lives coming back to that golden Buddha, revealing and sharing that golden Buddha, not just with ourselves, but with the world around us, because it's who we really are. The hero's journey is not separate from us or our lives. We are not separate from the people we see in our movies or novels or our myths. They are us. We are all on this journey. Why do we feel elated when we watch these films and read these books? Perhaps in those moments, it's touching a seed in us that needs to be actualized when we see those heroes. And these journeys are not necessarily outside of us. These journeys are inside of us as well. Perhaps our greatest self is still hidden from ourselves, still hidden from others, just waiting to be revealed. A hero's journey is not necessarily about resources outside of us. It's about reclaiming and developing an awareness of the resources inside of us. The most important thing about that myths teach us is to go beyond what we perceive as our limited possibilities, the limits of our possibilities. Myths are metaphors. Unfortunately, many people are metaphorically challenged. They see metaphors as facts or history, and we see that in our religious fundamentalism and in much of the extremism in our world. So part of our hero's journey is pushing past an unsatisfied life to a satisfied life, to find the resources within ourselves to make that change. And there is not necessarily one of these journeys in our lifetime. We are continuously on our hero's journeys. I'm giving a plural here. We have multiple journeys. And as long as we have breath, these myths invite us to push, to birth ourselves and to birth who we really are. It is never a point where we cannot do this as long as we can breathe. We all know, I think most of us are familiar with Joseph Campbell's famous statement, follow your bliss. He also says, follow your bliss and don't be afraid to follow it. Because he often shares at that second stage in his hero's journey, it's always about passing over fear. Because it's always fear that's in our way somehow, or some limitation we've decided that we cannot pass. He shares that the frustration most of us experience in our lifetime is that we can't make a difference in the world. And he goes on to say that in saving yourself, you save the world. He goes on to say, as in saving yourself, you save the world. He encourages us to find our passion, and then in doing so, bring our vitality to our life. And as others witness this as well, they will be inspired to do the same. And just to go off key a little bit with this, I look at this congregation and so many amazing creative people. Were you all creative, or did you open up to something like this later in your life? You know, I mean, many of us are afraid to show that intimate side of us that would sing or dance or draw or speak in public, right? It's that fear of being judged by others, which often will be the thing that will keep us separate, keep us from our bliss, keep us from sharing our beautiful golden Buddhas that each of us have, and we're longing to see it in each other. Campbell talks about how we are all essentially connected through consciousness. And he talks about this, and his example is watching a vine climb a tree and how it will always turn and find the sun. There is a consciousness there. There's a consciousness in everything alive on this planet, and it is all in interaction with all of the other consciousness. The world is informed by consciousness. All of it is interconnected. Campbell shares that all of life is a meditation or a focus. We are either consciously co-creating our existence, or we are unconsciously co-creating our existence. But one way or another, we're on this journey. The question is, are we going to take this journey consciously as active participants, driving the car? Or are we going to get in the back seat and take a nap and let the car go? The hero's journey draws us in because we can relate to them. The truth is, each of us are on our hero's journey. Campbell believes that the most heroic of all acts is the courage to discover who you are and what you would like to be. To slay the dragon of the ego and follow the bliss to the truth of your life. And he went on to say, I don't believe people are looking for the meaning of life. as much as they're looking for the experience of being alive. And I know my fellow hiker in the back knows that. Margot back there. The experience of being alive. In closing, I'd like to share a quote by David R. Hawkins from his book, On the Path to Enlightenment. And he shares, "We change the world not by what we do, but as a consequence of who we become." So I ask you all, what does your next hero's journey look like? May we all have the courage to reveal and embrace our golden Buddha. May it be so. Thank you, everyone. If you like this video, please like us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click on the bell to be notified whenever we post a new video. Thank you.